Welcome to Pet Pals. I'm Dee Dee and this is Randy. And as usual, we're here at Frederick County Animal Control and Pet Adoption Center on Rosemont Avenue, bringing you some adoptable pets. And we are starting out the day with perhaps not the most beautiful cat in the shelter, but close. This cat is called Turbo, and he has blue eyes, and he is what is known as a flame point. On top of that, he has extra long fur, so he is fluffier than your average cat. And a flame point just means that the points of the cat, nose, ears, tail tip, are orange colored instead of the same color as his body. And it is part of the Siamese family, although he's not a purebred cat by any means. He's just beautifully marked. Now, he also happens to be young. He's only about a year old. And he was given up by people who had to move to a place where they couldn't take him. And that's pretty common in our animal shelter, that we hear people separating with their pets because they have to move to some place. And I know all of us with pets can be judgmental about that and say things like, I would live in my car before I would give up my pet. But the reality is, a lot of things happen in people's lives that are out of their control, and they do the best they can. And because there is a place where they can bring a pet in an emergency, sometimes they take that option. And since there are over 200 million pets in the United States, and fewer than 6 or 8 million ever see the inside of the shelter, and many of those are just lost pets that are reclaimed, it is a very small incidence that people leave their pets behind in a shelter. That does not happen very often. Still, 4 to 8 million is nothing to sneeze at. That's a lot of animals to find homes for. But as a population, a percentage of how many animals are kept as pets, it really is a tiny number of animals end up in shelters, and most of them not because they're being mistreated, but because for whatever reason, people decide not to keep them. So this beautiful cat, Turbo, is available for adoption, and adoption's pretty straightforward. You come to the shelter on Rosemont, look at all the cats, check out their profiles, ask to see a few, we'll help you out with that. And if you make a good match, you fill out an application. If you own your own home, or we check with your landlord, and your other pets are up to date on rabies shots, then we spay or neuter the pet of your choice, sit down and talk to you about how to integrate that pet into your house, and you take them home. It's pretty simple. For cats, it's $97.50. Unless they're over 5 years old, then we discount a little. And if they're over 10, we discount even more. It takes a really generous person to take home a 10-year-old cat, but there are advantages. So if you think that Turbo is a good match for you or someone that you know, then come and meet him and see what you think. Our next guest is Antonio. And Antonio came to us from someone who had a number of cats on their property, and they were gathering up the kittens and handling them to get them gentle, and then bringing them into us, because one of the things about having a number of cats on your property, which can be pretty common in Frederick, is that if you're going to take really good care of them, it's expensive if there are too many, because obviously they each need their checkup every year. They need rabies shots. If you have outside cats, you really should consider having them vaccinated for leukemia, vaccinated for diseases other cats have. It just gets very costly. So they're doing the right thing by paring down to a population they can be responsible for. One thing that's very tempting to do when you see cats outside is to offer them food. And while I wouldn't tell you not to do it blanketly, because there are many ways to do it kindly and make it serve some end, but what happens is if you offer outside cats that are loosely owned some food, you encourage them to collect in one area to get that food, and it can lead to fighting and sharing of diseases, and most importantly, kittens. So if you are going to feed outdoor kittens, then certainly doing what this family did is the right way to do it. Gather up the young ones, gentle them, get them into homes, or let us help you do that, or the Animal Welfare League or Tiffany Frederick help you, and spay and neuter the adults. or the problem just continues, and it actually doesn't tend to get better when you feed them. It tends to get a little worse because of the sharing of diseases and ability to have more kittens if there's food available. So it's just something to think about. It's obviously a kindness to shelter or feed a cat, and as you can see, this little kitten is really loving the handling and attention from a person, so he's going to make a wonderful pet. And he does have a litter mate, so if you were thinking of getting two, you might want to consider taking two that already know each other. But I also caution you against that, because nature's way is that when they're 9 or 10 months old, they should disperse and go find their own territories. So sometimes when you adopt two kittens, they don't stay best friends forever. So if you are prepared to accommodate two cats with their separate lives, by all means take a chance on siblings and see if they get along forever. But it should free you up not to feel guilty if you don't take both, because if you just want one cat, cats are okay with that, and nature has a plan for that anyway. They're very efficient hunters. They don't need friends to get by. They don't need cat friends to get by, but they need people friends. So you don't have to feel bad if you don't take all of the kittens in a litter, and that can free you up to get the one you want the most. Our next guest is Bagheera. For those of you who remember Jungle Book, that was the panther character in Mowgli's story. And Bagheera is quite a beautiful young cat. He is 3 years old, and he came to us as a stray, so we gave him that name here. But what's interesting about him is he's already neutered. So although we don't know his story, we do know that he was someone's pet, because had he been neutered as a wild cat, then he would have his ear notched or tipped. And for those of you who don't know what that is, that's cat population control standard of care. Veterinarians who help people capture cats that are not gentled to people, to neuter and spay them so that they won't produce more kittens that don't have homes, put a surgical mark on their ear so that from a distance you can tell that the cat has already been neutered. Why that is helpful is because these cats are not likely to approach people, not Bagheera, he's very friendly. And that means that if people who are trying to manage stray cats see them at a distance, they know that they're already altered, so they will not be producing kittens. And also, if they capture one in a trap inadvertently, they can just release them. Because what also goes with the ear notching is that the animal, while sedated and neutered, probably was given a rabies shot. So it is a very helpful practice for people who are trying to help us and help communities all over the country with the loosely owned cat population. So since Bagheera came to us not ear notched and neutered, then we suspect he was someone's pet, and that he is in need of another home because he's not a free-ranging cat that can take care of himself. He's also quite beautiful, and you can tell has lived sheltered. He's not matted. He doesn't have fight marks on him, but he certainly is strong and independent. So he'll make a great cat for someone who appreciates everything that cats are. And obviously you can change his name since we made up Bagheera, unless you like it, in which case maybe there will be encouragement for you to come and meet him, because he is a big, strong, worthy of his name kitty that just is in need of someone to be his caretaker and scratch his ear for him.
Is that better?
We are back with Mr. Puffy, and he is a beautiful brown tabby with longer hair, as you can see, and he was given up with his companion cat, and they're adults, so if you are looking for two cats who get along, then that's a great bet. These two cats have always lived together. Mr. Puffy is 2 years old, and they were given up because their owner had a breakup of their family, change in lifestyle, did not feel like he could keep the cats. And one of the hardest things about those happenings when families change their living circumstances is it usually ends up moving, involving a landlord, selling a home, And there are a lot of places where you cannot have all the pets you want if the property is owned by someone else. It's kind of unfortunate because I have won over landlords in the past. I have my own house now, so I can do what I want. But I have won over landlords in the past by getting a letter from my vet about the health of my animal, a letter from dog trainers about the behavior of my dogs, and references from my previous landlords that there was no damage done and that I kept, a tidy home and repaired anything that was related to pet ownership. So you can do it. It just takes some work on your part. And I actually had a landlord in Wheaton who changed his policy from no pets to preferring tenants with pets. So if you do the work, you can do it. It's just that many people are moving on a time limit, so they don't have the ability to get all this stuff together. But I do recommend that you get a pet resume together of all of that information, the health records of your pet, previous landlord's recommendation. And if you can't get that, you can always get a roommate's recommendation that your pet wasn't a problem, that you took good care of your pet. And these are ways that you can win your landlord over or win a new landlord over before you move in, to make sure that you don't have to part with your pets if you move. And then things like what happened to Mr. Puffy won't happen as often. And always remember that with 200 million pets in the country and fewer than 1% even seeing the inside of a shelter, it's not common. It's just something that you definitely want to think about, because they don't have any power to fix their problem. They need people to do it for them. And our last feline guest is Cleo. And Cleo is a beautiful brown tabby kitten. And you may have noticed we usually put the kittens on first and the adult cats on later, because adult cats are more likely to have had shots and a full immune system. And this week we did the opposite. And sometimes there are reasons for that if we want the kitten to be pet of the week. But in Cleo's case, oh, she just spit out her treat. In Cleo's case, she has a green sticker on her name tag. And what that tells Randy is that she is undergoing a course of medication. And it could be for many different reasons. She could have a cold, she could have worms, she could have some other parasite, she could be on a bland diet, all kinds of things. But what that lets him know is that he wants to do her last in case she has any germs that would get on his clothes and then other cats would come in contact with it. So we're always trying to do the best we can to minimize their exposure to each other. But for those of you who don't know the word fomite, I'll give you the new word of the day. That is a medical term for anything on which germs can travel. And I will tell you, it's a constant battle here, because a typical fomite, door handles, pens, pieces of paper, there's very little you can do other than walk around spraying your hands and shirt all day. But we do our best to make sure that we're not being blatantly responsible for the transfer of germs. So Cleo is only about 6 months old. This tiny little girl is one of our many kittens. This time of year, we are full. The shelter is full, we're packed. We have so many kittens and older cats. We have a lot of dogs, 2 kennel rooms full of dogs for your viewing pleasure, with the potential that you might take one home. And if you are not interested in adopting right now, we totally understand. Randy has his amount of pets that he can have. I have the amount of pets I can have. Most people who work and volunteer here are always maxed out on the amount of animals that they can take. But what you can help us with is to go to Pet Finder or pettango.com and find the profile of one of the animals you've seen today, or another pet that you're interested in, and share them on social networking. And I always like it when kittens do this, because this is what getting a kitten is all about. So we're going to take a break, and as Randy always points out, we're really not taking a break. What we're going to do is rearrange things, clean up, wash our hands, stuff like that, so that we can bring you some adoptable dogs. We'll be back in a minute, and I hope you join us. Welcome back. This is T, and T is a beautiful bulldog. And as you can see, his tail is wagging constantly. It has a beautiful face, which you'll see in 1 second, and a friendly, gentle dog. He sits when you ask him to. He's going to climb into Randy's lap. And I think he's going to make somebody a really great pet. But obviously, he's really big, so you're going to need to be prepared for a big, strong dog. But also, because he's a bulldog mix, or some type of bulldog that, there are many, many bully breeds. There are Cane Corsos, Dog de Bordeaux, American Bulldog, what people commonly call American Pit Bull Terriers, American Staffordshire Bull Terriers. There are so many kinds. There's Alapaha Blue Blood, which he does look very much like, except he doesn't have blue eyes. So without a DNA test, we can't tell you for sure. He could be an English Bulldog mixed with a big dog because he does have the squashed-in face. But in any case, he's a very sweet dog, and a lot of dogs with bully breed faces are restricted by landlords, so you just have to be prepared for that. And some people are afraid of any big dogs that have a big round head, so you have to be prepared for that, and for his ability to move area rugs. So if you think that T will make a good match for you or someone that you know what to do. Come and meet him or share his picture around. He is 6 years old, and he will be microchipped and neutered and vaccinated and all kinds of things before you take him home. He also does have, apparently, like right here on his head, he has like a little rash that he's being treated for. So that could be an ongoing problem for him, or it could just be something that he contacted before coming here, or even disinfectants that we use. But our veterinarians write down notes about everything they know. So if you do think about adopting him, you could take the medical notes and share with your vet before you decide.
Off. There you go. Good boy.
Our next guest is Bella, and as you can see, Bella's a puppy. She is primarily American Pit Bull Terrier, or maybe Staffordshire Bull Terrier, hard to say. She's a beautiful brindle, and she is on special dog food, lamb and rice, because we're trying to find out if food contributes to allergies in her. And it could also be that once she's on a great diet and used to consistent treatment, she'll be okay. But again, we always share that with you so that you can share it with your vet before you decide to adopt. Because allergic dogs can be frustrating to house if you can't find out what they are allergic to. Allergies are related to stress, they're related to diet, they're related to toxins in the environment, so it can be a puzzler to solve. And she was given up because her family was moving, and they were moving to a place that wouldn't let them bring her. So she is in need of a new home. And I don't know if you can tell so much here because she's so busy leaning on Randy, but this is an outgoing, people-loving, wiggly, wagging puppy. She loves everyone. So I think she's going to make a great family pet because she's got that great people-loving attitude. Sometimes when people are choosing a dog, they like to choose a dog who is a little more selective, only likes some people, or isn't overbearing when they meet you. But the drawback to doing that, I've done that and been very well rewarded for it. The drawback to doing that is that you need to commit to socializing that dog, to making sure they have positive experiences with strangers so that they get over any reluctance to approach people. With a dog like Bella, you don't have to worry. She is not going to, yeah, we're not letting her have any treats because of her lamb and rice restriction right now. So a dog like Bella, you're not going to have to worry about that. You can take her everywhere. She loves the world, she loves people, and it's very easy to teach a dog to approach properly by sitting or lying down and not jumping on people. If she has already the love of people in her heart, it makes very easy to train these dogs. But sometimes people are worried when they meet a dog that jumps all over them that it's going to be hard. And all I can say is the love of people in a dog is something that you cannot create. It has to be there, or it isn't there. And if it isn't there, then you have to be dedicated and your work set out for you to make sure that you give your dog a positive worldview. Bella was born with one. Our next guest
Sit.
is Zeus.
Sit.
And Zeus was here about a month ago, and he came to us as a stray, and some of our volunteers were walking him, and he pulled his leash out of their hands and took off. So we all ran out of the shelter and tried to catch him, and he ran right up to one of our employees, Brian, instantly came to him. So he's a good little puppy.
So it's Brian.
But the people who adopted him only had him for about a month. And they said that having a puppy is just too hard. So I don't know what else to say about adopting out puppies, but we only get 200 or 300 every year. And there are always more people who want one of the puppies than we have puppies. So we do our very best to pick the family that is going to stick with the puppy through their young months, which are always trying. And 1 time out of 10, we pick the wrong people and they bring the puppy back for doing some puppy thing, like having a lot of energy or not coming when they're called or jumping on people or chewing up something important. So what's so hard about that is that I don't feel like we could do any more than we do on this show and in the interview process and in the meeting process explaining puppies are naughty. And the key to solving the naughty puppy problem is supervision. So if you are not going to be able to spend hours a day watching your puppy and showing them what they can and cannot do, then please don't bring a puppy home. Because what happens is this little guy 1 month ago didn't know how to walk on a leash, jumped on people, didn't know how to come when called, barely sat for a treat, got adopted. And 6 weeks later, he still doesn't know how to walk on a leash, barely sits when you have a treat. So we've lost a month's time of helping Zeus learn what people like. But just like Bella, he loves people. That's something you can't train. And so he's going to be easy to motivate because he wants to know what people like. And Randy's already persistently making sure his butt is on the ground before he can have the treat, so he'll learn it. Good. So if you are thinking that you want a puppy, please talk to us because we don't try to talk you out of it, but we as blatantly and clearly as we can explain puppies are naughty. You have to be ready.
But they're worth it. If you can stick it out, they're worth it.
Our next guest is Boo. And Boo is some kind of terrier mix. And she is a very sweet little girl, only 11 months old. So, so far on the show, all but the first dog are under a year old. So we have a shelter full of dogs that are technically puppies, not what people think of when they go to the store to get or a breeder to get a 6 or 8 week old puppy. In Maryland, you should know that the law prohibits separating a mother from her puppies before they are 8 weeks old unless a veterinarian certifies that the mother is unable to care for. And the reason for that is that the experience that puppies get from their mother between 6 and 8 weeks old helps them be less fearful, starts them a little bit on house training, and the interaction with their litter mates can make them more tender with their teeth because when they play with each other, they learn if they hurt each other that the play stops. So it is really important for puppies to stay with their moms long enough. So when people picture getting a puppy, they picture getting a tiny, tiny puppy. And that's okay once they're 8 weeks old legally, but that means even more supervision than what I had in mind for Zeus. And obviously, the advantage of getting a dog like Boo is that she's 11 months old, so while she's still a puppy and still can learn plenty of things, she can hold her bladder for several hours. She can start learning to stay home alone for longer periods of time. She can, there's no reason to wait from the time a tiny puppy starts at home in your house, and her age for training, you should start right away with sit and lie down. But she is old enough, because she's had all of her shots, to go out and about where other dogs are, to go to an obedience class, and they do have special classes for baby puppies, but she is old enough now to participate in all the kinds of things you imagine doing when you get a dog. So Boo was given up to us because the family disagreed about keeping her. They had one family member who was not in favor, and one family member who very much wanted to keep her. So through no fault of her own, she is in need of a family that can, you know, do right by her. Yeah. So her tail is short, and I don't know if she was born that way, because we were told that in the beginning she was part Australian Shepherd, and they can be born with no tail, or if because she looks Schnauzerish, someone docked her tail. It may be on her record, so I can check later and see if we have information about that. She actually has a really nice kind of coat that's going to be easy to take care of. So that's also something that people consider when they're getting a dog. So if you are thinking about getting a youngster, but maybe you don't want to go with the tiny baby puppy, then Boo may be the right dog for you. Our last guest is Ray, and Ray is a beautiful blue-eyed Pit Bull Terrier mix. He could be all American Pit Bull Terrier, but since we don't have paperwork for that, we can never be sure. And he came to us as a stray, which is the reason we don't have paperwork, and he's another puppy. He's 7 to 9 months old. As you can see, he's doing a great job of sitting when Randy asks, and he's very people-oriented, another good sign. And a lot of times we don't know the story of the strays that come to us because we don't locate their owner and get to find out their likes and dislikes before coming to us. But with a puppy, it's pretty easy to predict reasons that people may not have followed up to find their dog. And all of the same reasons that people use for giving up adult dogs are true of puppies, with the addition of the amount of work it is to supervise a puppy, as we've spent plenty of times talking about today. As always, if you are interested in a pet, please think of the shelter first and come in and meet our animals, see what you think. And if you are interested in just helping us get them adopted, then there's also a lot you can do for us, even if you're not in the market for a pet, such as go to Pet Finder or Pet Tango and find their profile. And oh, that's great. Pet Tango or Pet Finder, and print their profile and share it someplace where people who may not know the animals that we have in the shelter are here, and that will help us a great deal. Thanks for joining us this week on Pet Pals, and we will see you next time.